Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have Captain Michael Abrashoff and Julie Smith on our program. We're going to be in webinar format so that we can tape the program, and videos for our shows are always on pursepower.com. Let's share the journey. You can look on our website every Monday morning and you'll see the Friday event that we've got going on. And we've been told over and over again just how high quality these shows are and the guests that we have on, just like our guest today. Please do introduce yourselves on chat, and we're going to provide a chance for everybody to get to know each other. Every fourth Friday of the month, we have a networking session, and people are meeting colleagues and partners and customers, and I hope you can join us. First Power is working to help women use their massive purchasing power to drive positive change. We believe that if women, who make 80% of all purchasing decisions, would choose to buy from the companies that actively promote women, and we would do that in mass, and if we could create a funding stream for battered women's shelters in the process, that we could shatter glass ceilings and change lives. So that's what Purse Power is trying to do. We started these sessions at the beginning of the pandemic as a way of connecting our audience with each other and with senior leaders nationally, much like we have today. And we've got a tremendous set of episodes on our website. I want to shout out to a couple special guests, Fawn, Lou, and Debbie. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you again to Mariner Wealth Advisors for sponsoring this program today. I'll give Julie a chance to introduce herself and Mariner Wealth Advisors, and then we'll get into the interview with Captain Abrashoff. Please do share your comments in the chat area, introduce yourselves, go ahead and have a conversation about what's being said, and then we will open it up for a Q&A a little later on. It would help me a lot if you would put your questions in the Q&A block so that we're looking there for the questions that you want to ask Captain Abrashoff. All right, so Julie and Mariner Wealth Advisors are a big supporter of both women and Purse Power. As a senior wealth consultant, Julie focuses on building relationships and connecting prospective clients with advisory teams, and she has more than 25 years of experience in financial services. So please do go ahead and introduce your company if you would for a minute here. Julie, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. We are so pleased at Mariner Wealth Advisors to be able to sponsor today's program. It was after that we decided to sponsor the program that we realized the parallels that we have, as our name is Mariner, which is another word for sailor. And that is what Captain Abrashoff is, a sailor. And there's so many parallels. For example, he's out on the seas navigating, trying to take that ship to its destination. And we at Mariner are doing the same thing. We are helping our clients navigate the financial waters of their life. And we're also trying to reach a destination for them. And our destination for them are reaching the goals that they set so that they can journey through their lives. So we're really excited about that. And we are just ready to turn it over.
Okay, thank you so much, Julie. Sure appreciate it. Okay, let me go ahead and introduce Captain Abrashoff, and he's amazing. I was a former HR leader earlier in my life, and I brought him into a couple different companies, and he has some really important things to say about leadership that I think are more apropos today than ever. At the age of 36, Captain Abrashoff was selected to become the commander of the USS Benfold, and at the time, he was the most junior commanding officer in the Pacific Fleet. The ship that he was on had really low morale and the highest turnover rate in the Navy. Sound familiar, given the times that we're in? His solution was a system of beliefs that he called the Leadership Roadmap, which was a process of reimagining leadership and replacing command and control style leadership with commitment and cohesion. He achieved a level of operational success never before seen in the Navy, and he called his process Romancing the Stone. That's the name of the program today. Through conviction and humility, Mike engaged his young crew through empowerment, and he believed the most important thing that a captain could do was to see the ship through the eyes of the crew. Since leaving the Navy, Mike's founded Aegis Performance Group and has worked with over 1,200 companies, from nonprofits to Fortune 10 companies, helping them with leadership and empowering individuals at all levels to share responsibility in the success of the organization. In his book, It's Your Ship, Mike was known to say that it's really important to engage the hearts and minds of employees, and again, to really value what they have to say to the organization. Many thanks to Mariner Wealth Advisors for sponsoring this amazing program. And let's go ahead and start with our interview of Mike. Okay, so Mike, we want to get to know you. Please tell us a little bit about your background and how you arrived at this place in your life and career.
So Donna, before I go there, I want to give you some background on Romancing the Stone.
Okay.
It was not only a 1984 Michael Douglas movie, but it's a term used in the jewelry industry where gemologists, before they cut into a gem, they romance the stone. And what I used to say to my second in command and our command master chief on the ship is that our people are our gems, and we have to romance them in order to treat them with respect and listen to them and get them to stay with us. So that was, we viewed our people as our gems. And so we had to treat them with great care. And they stayed with us. And so I took over a ship quarter before I took command. Their retention rate was 8%. We had one of the highest accident rates of any ship in the Navy and some of the poorest performance metrics. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm not smart enough to turn this ship around. I graduated in the top 80% of my class at the U.S. Naval Academy. And I was obsessed over all the things I couldn't influence. And then one day it hit me, I'm going to obsess over the things that I can. And our gems are the things that I could influence. And so long story short, in 15 months, the same crew that was performing near the bottom was awarded the Spokane Trophy, which is an award started in 1908 by President Theodore Roosevelt. Years 3 and 4 after that, we got the trophy for best ship in the entire Navy. We go from an 8% retention rate to almost 100% retention rate. We go from having one of the worst safety records to coming in number 2 for the Navy Safety Award. And we got featured in Fast Company magazine. And the article became the #1 reader response article in the history of Fast Company. Wow. They asked me to come give a presentation in front of 1,500 people. I'd never spoken before in public. And a week later, a professor from UCLA calls me and says, Mike, I do a program 1 weekend a month for the worst performing principals and administrators of the LA school district. Would you come present? So I was based in San Diego. 1 weekend a month, I'd get in the car, go up to LA, and found out that I love leadership development. And through this professor, I get asked to speak at the Harvard Business School and the Stanford Business School. And my mother, who was 80 years old at the time, said, what's it like speaking at institutions that would never have you as a student? So that's how I got my start. And I wrote a book called It's Your Ship. It has now sold over 1.2 million copies. Wow. And I get to meet great people like you along the way that whenever you call and say, let's do this, I say yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. All right. So Purse Power, as you know, is primarily engaged in helping women business owners and leaders. What role have women played in your life and career? And do you see any special insights or capabilities that women have to bring to the table right now?
Well, I grew up in a house of 10 people, 7 women and 3 men. We had 1 bathroom in our home growing up. Oh, wow. And when I got out of the Navy and was able to buy my first home, it has 4 bathrooms in it. And I visit everyone every day just because I can. So that was the impact of having 7 women in the house. But my mother was a school teacher, and she taught junior high school for 41 years, retired at age 62, and then continued to substitute teach in the same school district 3 days a week for $50 a day for the next 24 years, finally retiring at age 86. And today she'll be 100 in 3 months, and she's in perfect health. She lives alone. She lives in the house that the royalties from It's Your Ship bought for her so that she could age in place. But I've got 5 older sisters, and every one of them has been to college. They're all professional. And so I come from a family of strong women. And so I'm not threatened by it. I mean, to me, that's the way it is. And so I take command of USS Benfold, and it was first ship built from the keel up to accommodate both men and women. And everybody said, aren't you afraid to go to a ship that has women on it? And I guess I didn't know to be afraid. I guess I didn't know that I should be afraid. And so I'm here thinking, well, I've only served on ships that were all male. Let's try it out. And it turns out that after having served on a mixed gender ship, that if I had stayed in the Navy and gotten command of another ship, I would have requested a mixed gender crew because the women on the ship raised the performance level of the men. And so I thought it was a strong positive to have a mixed gender crew.
Okay, so I'd like you to talk about how or why you felt that happened.
I think the men did not want to be outshined by the women on the ship because, it's a macho culture and they're thinking, no, women can't do this job. And so they never wanted to be outperformed by a woman. But I put women in very prominent roles on the ship. Like one of my women officers, I put in charge of the Tomahawk cruise missiles, which is one of our most advanced and lethal weapon system in the military, and it's most complex. And here she was in charge of all the Tomahawk cruise missiles, probably the first woman in the Navy to be the cruise missile officer on a ship. And so, I celebrated the fact that they were so competent and raised the level of performance of the men on the ship.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great to hear. All right. So with the great reshuffle or great resignation going on right now, I felt like what you had to say is so important for corporations. How do we engage the hearts and minds of employees? And it's never been more critical than it is today.
So keep in mind, I took command in 1997. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed every sailor on the ship individually, all 310 of them. Hmm. And I got to know their names and their spouses' names and their children's name and their hometowns. And I asked them what they were most proud of in their lives. And when people, if you want a good topic at a dinner party, and I do this all the time when I'm at a dinner party, let's go around the table and tell us what you're most proud of in your life. And the responses that you get are just incredible, that you learn insight about people. And so by interviewing every sailor and getting to know them and what their life experience is, then I could use that to connect with them and engage them and to make them feel like I care about them. Mm-hmm. And you know what? If your people think you care about them, they will follow you into battle. And, in large organizations and small ones, if we don't take the time to connect with our people, they'll just feel like they're a cog in the machine and not somebody who's accountable and responsible for the results. And what we did in these interviews was to create a culture where they took the accountability for the results. And at the end of the day, they were the ones that drove their performance. But also in the interviews, I would say to them, I don't care what your age is. I don't care what your rank is. I don't care how long you've been here. You can come to work every day and challenge every aspect of our operation. And if you have an idea how to improve a process 1%, I want to hear from you. And it's like, we can't change the rest of the Navy. It's 320,000 people. But you know what? We can make our own little piece of 310 people the best and the safest that we possibly can. And we can't do that if I just sit in the captain's chair and order excellence all day, in order for something to be done all day long. The excellence only comes about when everybody's engaged, takes accountability for the results, collaborates, and drives performance.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I think that's what people are lacking, and that's why we have the great resignation and people jumping jobs, because they feel like nobody cares about them, nobody cares about their journey, nobody cares about their career progression, and they want more control. And I found that the more control I gave up over the organization, the greater command I got. And so it was always about empowering and giving control to our people, and they stayed and performed.
Yeah, absolutely. What I was going to say is as a coach, I've had some leaders that were struggling, and I've used your book and had them go out and interview people, and it's 180-degree turnaround. It's amazing how effective it is. It's really effective.
I'll take 10% of your coaching fee then.
Okay. You deserve it. You deserve it. All right. So attracting talent in the first place is also really challenging right now. We're all going after the same people. How can companies transform their employee experience for talent beyond what you've already said? And also the mindset around work has changed. I mean, how do you see it changing as a result of the pandemic? And what does that mean for leaders?
So I've had the great fortune of being able to, I do about 100 keynote speeches a year. Mm-hmm. I've spoken to every segment of the economy. And one year, and believe it or not, there are 81,000 trade associations in this country. And one year I got asked to speak to the Sand and Gravel Association. And this is an association of companies that dig pits that haul sand and gravel out for construction projects. And so I'm talking to the CEO of one of the companies, and I said, how do you recruit people to come do this hard work? He says, I recruit a core group of people, treat them well, and then they bring their cousins and their brothers-in-law, and it's word of mouth. And that's how I staff this company, solely through word of mouth. And to me, your current employees, your gems are your greatest ambassadors to go out and recruit people. And it's because of the reach that they have through their social networks these days. Mm-hmm. And we underestimate the power of the social networks today as a means to recruit other people into the organization. And you can either have an employee that's out there making your job tougher by saying what a lousy place it is to work, or you could have a shipmate out there telling their friends and neighbors and their followers, this is the best place to work, and it's free. You know, it doesn't cost a dime. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I didn't have an endless budget. I couldn't pick, you know, my crew, but you know what? I can get them to tell their friends, this is where you want to come, and it doesn't cost a dime.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any insights on how you think the mindset has changed?
Because of social media,
yeah,
people now know what's going on in different organizations, and if their friends or, you know, through the internet, they're finding out that people are getting treated better somewhere else, they're going to say, well, why don't we get treated that way? And so the explosion of social media, I think, has forced us to up our game, because everybody now knows what everybody else is getting, and the opportunities or lack of opportunities. And if they don't get it, they're asking why, and migrating to the place that's offering what they're looking for out of work.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got 3 young people at home, and it's a different world, and they're so connected. They know exactly what's going on inside your company these days.
They're savvy. And like, I was speaking at a hospital system in Gainesville, Florida, and where University of Florida is. And I passed a bus stop where 30 students were waiting for the bus to come take them to class. Not one of them was conversing with each other. They were all like this with their cell phone in their hand and looking down. And that's where they're getting all their information from. And so we need to be careful about what the information is being put out there about our organization. And I call it our professional reputation. Mm-hmm. And we have to zealously guard our professional reputation and be seen as, you know, that's the place, because I'm going to advance, I'm going to be treated fairly, and I'm going to get something out of the work. And then they'll pass that on, and that's how you start getting people to come apply.
Absolutely. Yeah, my daughter just got out of college and was looking for a job. She was going to Glassdoor to find out reputations before she ever talked to anybody.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So you also got amazing performance out of a team when you couldn't, to your point, hire, fire, or pay more. So what can we learn from that success in this day and age?
Well, you focus on the things you can influence instead of obsessing over the things that you can't. Mm-hmm. And I remember being on previous ships where I would say, gee, if we just had a better crew. Or it's like, when I get command of the ship, it's like, crew. I'm going to invest in their training. I'm going to create a culture where I would want my own son or daughter to come be a part. I'm going to treat them with respect, and I'm going to empower them. And any sailor, if they saw an idea, came up with an idea of how we could improve something 1%, there was no fear in the organization. They could surface any idea. There would be no retribution. There would be no making fun of them or bullying them, because out of 100 ideas, I could probably implement 40, and some of them were off the wall. But that's where that off the wall and suggestion can lead to a thought process that gets you somewhere better. Mm-hmm. And so, And it also lets me know that there's an issue, an underlying issue that I need to resolve. So to me, fear in an organization is a cancer.
Mhm.
And if your people fear telling you the truth, then you're not going to have a high performing organization and they're going to leave you.
Right, right. Well, and you got to have secure managers and mature people that are not going to get defensive when employees bring up these ways of making things better.
It's true. So I lifted an idea from the Army. And in the Army, they have what's called the after action review. And after every event, after every process, everybody involved gets together to critique it and talk about what it was they were trying to do, what the conditions were, what worked, what didn't work, what would we do better next time if we see the same situation. And I brought that with me to Benfold. And on Benfold, there's no retribution for what gets said. And anybody involved in the process can respectfully challenge anybody else. And so the lowest ranking seaman involved in a process, in an after action review, in public, could respectfully challenge me. And if they were right, if I was doing something that was causing them to do needless additional work, I'll change. But if they were wrong, it meant there was something that they didn't understand. And it allowed me to have a coachable moment to say, here's the 30,000 foot view. And here's us mariners down here at sea level having to execute. And this is where you come in. And so I was able to connect them to our purpose through these after action reviews and improve every process on the ship.
That's amazing. I mean, I've got just some clients around me that I think that this would be very useful for, you know, to be able to have their employees challenge things or do the after action without people getting defensive.
Right.
How do you create a culture like that? Is it your behavior that's making the change?
So one of my role models, my lead role model in life, and how to lead an organization, is a guy by the name of William Perry, who was the Secretary of Defense, and he chose me to be his number 2 assistant. And I watched him every day for 27 months. And he's the best leader I've ever seen. And he wasn't charismatic and outgoing. And I've come to determine charisma has nothing to do with being a great leader. He was a very humble leader. And I would come to call his leadership style excellence without arrogance. So when you check your ego at the door, it allows you to be more receptive to ideas from others, and that you don't have to put the pressure on yourself to be the creator of every great idea on the ship. And so I think it's leading with that sense of humility that can get you to a higher level of performance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Let's see here. So how about this whole virtual environment? Do you have any specific insights about leadership skills required to manage people that are virtual?
So COVID has affected everybody around the globe in one way or another. And quite honestly, the last 2 years have sucked. And families have lost loved ones, and people have COVID long haul. And all these things affect our experience over the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so as leaders, we have to know, without having an inquisition, finding out what's going on in your people's lives, how have you been affected? And then using that knowledge to create a more empathetic approach to people who, may have had kids that had to, be homeschooled for the first time. And here you have a mother who's both working and, being a mother at the same time. How do you balance the two? So it's been a struggle, and there's no roadmap for the course that we're sailing over right now.
Yeah.
And so the key is you have to treat each person individually and understand what their journey they're on and what's affected them and how you can connect with them. And there are lots of ways you can do it. You have a brown bag lunch, a Zoom lunch if you're working remotely. And, tell me what's going on, and I'll tell you what's going on in my life so that they can understand where I'm coming from. And you can so I'm not here to be a shameless commercial for It's Your Ship, but it is a great book. Mm-hmm. I've had parents tell me that they bought the book to have a discussion with their teenage kids. And I told them what you should do is have your children lead the discussion. Have one child read one chapter and then have like a book club around it.
Huh.
Have them tell you what you learned, what they learned, and then you can, with your wisdom and experience, tell them how it affects it, how it works in the real world. So you can do that with your coworkers as well. Take a chapter of a book. It doesn't have to be at your ship, although I recommend it, and discuss it. And one person can present, and then you have a discussion, and it's something different than these boring, endless Zoom calls that people get put on from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. So I think there's a tremendous Zoom exhaustion in the country.
Yeah.
So mix it up and do something different, interesting, that you can learn from and understand your coworkers better by doing it.
I love that. I love that. All right, guys, by the way, please go ahead and start putting your questions in the Q&A block, and we'll get to those here in just a second. So from my perspective, there's so much division in this country right now. And you led a really diverse team, pardon me. How did you get such a diverse group of people together to drive towards their mission, irrespective of their differences? We need that right now.
So I actually think there are more things that unite us than divide us, but that people make money off dividing us and getting us upset. And so the life-changing event for me was the day I took command. And I don't talk about this often, but when my predecessor was leaving the ship for the final time with his parents and his wife and his kids, and as his departure was announced on the public address system, my new crew stood and cheered at the fact that he was leaving. And so I turned to my second in command and I said, I'd like to see the results of the anonymous equal opportunity survey that's required to be given prior to any change of command. And he says, we don't have the results. And I said, but it's a requirement to administer the survey. He said, yes, sir, we administered the survey, but nowhere in the manual does it say we have to tabulate the results. And your predecessor ordered me not to tabulate the results.
Wow.
And I said, tabulate the results and report back. Comes back several days later. I got bad news. The women on the ship feel like there's overwhelming sexual harassment. The minorities on the ship feel like there's overwhelming racial prejudice. And the white males on the ship feel like there's overwhelming favoritism shown towards women and minorities. And that's a trifecta I've never seen successfully duplicated anywhere. So we're required to have diversity training, which to me was ineffective. And it was just putting a check in the block. So I canceled it. And in its place, I put our unity training. And it's many of the same concepts of diversity training, but I wanted people to stop focusing on what divides us and focus on what unites us. And it's very simple. It takes different skill sets, different genders, different races, different levels of creativity to make a great organization. And you treat each other with respect and dignity and treat each other in a manner in which you yourself want to be treated by me. And in every interview on that ship, I would ask the sailor point blank, is there racial prejudice on this ship? And is there sexual harassment on this ship? And I can't legislate what you do at home, but non-compliance on this ship is going to be painful. And so those of us at the top set the example. And if it's important to us, it'll be important to our people. If it's just putting a check in the block, it won't be important. So we're the ones that make that decision. And the decision that I've made is people are going to be treated fairly on this ship, and that it takes different races, different genders, different levels of creativity to make us the leader in our industry.
Well, and the other thing that I was thinking as you were talking, I was going to ask you about society as a whole, but that's really big. So you're focused on what you can control, which makes all the sense.
Well, in society as a whole, there are more things that unite us in this country than divide us. But people on both the left and the right want you to tune in and be mad so that you contribute to politicians, and so there's nobody there's nobody making money off of uniting us in this country. And so it just comes to so I don't participate in it. I don't watch the news anymore. I have decided that I'm going to focus on the things that I can influence, and I can focus on myself. And I had a dinner at my house, and there were 10 people. They were just friends and acquaintances that I had met. And while I'm sitting there, hit me, there were 5 MAGA people and 5 progressive people at the dinner. And like, I never stopped to consider it, but we all got along great. And like, we're talking about the things that we have in common, and as opposed to the things that divide us. And if everybody just took that tack, we wouldn't have the division that we have in this country.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, great. We've got some questions coming in. So Joe Welsh, one of my favorite people, said, were there specific questions you asked during your one-on-ones with your crew?
So, they started off as, most of my sailors had never been in the captain's cabin before, because the door was always shut and it was locked. I pinned my door open, and it's a choice. I have an open door policy. But when I worked for the Secretary of Defense, it was after the Soviet Union broke up. And what most people don't understand is when the Soviet Union broke up, Ukraine had 600 ICBM missiles, and each missile had 10 independently targeted nuclear weapons on it.
Whoa.
So Ukraine, it's in the news today, had 6,000 nuclear warheads. And so William Perry came up with a program to denuclearize Ukraine. And so we got money funded, and we trained, we built houses for their strategic rocket forces. We trained them to get new jobs. And we made 4 trips to Ukraine, a place called Pervomaisk, where this missile field was. In the first trip, we went to remove the nuclear warheads. The second trip, we went to remove the missiles. The third trip was to blow up the missile silos so that they could never be used again. And the fourth trip was to plant crops in the field that used to house 6,000 nuclear warheads. So anyway, for my going away gift, William Perry gave me a photo from each of our 4 trips, and I had them in my cabin on the ship. And so I would start off with an interview, walking every sailor around the room, explaining the significance of each photo and how that contributed to the security of this country. And then I would pivot to tell them how what they're doing is contributing to the security of our country. So what I was trying to do was to connect them to our purpose.
Yeah.
And so I used these photos as a means to do that. And then we'd sit down for a conversation, tell me about yourself, tell me about your family, where you're from. I know this isn't going to be popular with many of your attendees today, but I found out that 25% of my crew actually like the Dallas Cowboys. And I later found out they were the bottom 25% performers on the ship.
Oh, yeah.
But the banter that went back and forth between me and the Cowboys fan was epic on the ship. But it just goes to, you learn what they're into, and then you use it to engage them. And so then I added 3 other questions. What do you like most about this ship? What do you like least? What would you change if you were the captain of the ship? And some sailors chose not to engage. They would just sit there and it'd be over in 5 minutes. Like my Uber driver that I had the other day, some interviews could be 45 minutes, and I learned. So what you don't know is Don and I were having a conversation. I had the most interesting Uber driver the other day that I didn't want to get out of the car at the destination because I learned so much from him. But I would learn so much from my sailors in these interviews as well. And they weren't interrogations, they were just conversations. And so I did it. I was having trouble learning names and faces and jobs. So I had an index card for every sailor, and I had their photo taken, photo, name, job. And then after every interview, I'd write down on my index card a little bit about them. And then when I had a free moment, I'd just review my index cards so that I could learn them. And within about a month, I knew every sailor on the ship.
Very good. Very, very good. All right. We've got questions now coming in. So let's see here. Hang on. I want to make sure I get the one before that. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, we've got several. Okay. Brooke Klink is saying, what challenges did you have to overcome when implementing Unity training? Did you have to follow through with accountability on noncompliance, and what did that look like?
So I attended every training session on the ship. And so they got to hear from me point blank, this is a big, so my second in command would say, this is a big deal. That was a code word to the crew, that it was a big deal to me. And so, he would start off and say, this is a big deal. And so it's the importance that we attach to something. And I attached a great value to having a harmonious workforce that had each other's back. And so if somebody was non-compliant, I could put pressure on them, and they would have a conversation with me about how I wasn't going to tolerate it. And if they continued to partake in bad activities, I'm going to place you on report. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to separate you from the ship. And so I never had to do that because people knew that this was important to me, that it was a big deal, and they complied. And that's what the leadership has to do in any organization, is to show that it's a big deal, and why it's a big deal. And it's about using every resource to their fullest to generate performance and keep our businesses safe in tough economic times. That's what it's about. It's not about touchy-feely stuff. It's about optimizing performance, and you can't do that if you have a divided workforce. And so we have to give them the why it's important and why it's in their own best interest. Yeah. And I used to spend 50 or 60% of my day either communicating to my sailors or listening to them. And that way I could come up with better policies and understand their viewpoints and how to connect with them and how to get them to align with what we needed to have done.
Wow. All right. Susan Chairs, terrific trademark attorney, is saying, is part of treating people fairly holding rule breakers accountable? And how do you deal with those who rebel against rules and persuade them to be a part of a unified group?
Well, I was a rule breaker and I rebelled against stupid rules. So you're probably talking about me. So sometimes we put rules in place for a very good reason, but we never update them or modify them over the years. So our ship pulls into Dubai, and Dubai is a very Western city. It's very liberal. In a lot of Middle East countries, you can't drink alcohol, and women have to wear burqas and whatnot. And in Dubai, it's very liberal. You can drink alcohol. Women are treated with respect. Women can drive. You can go camel riding out in the desert. You could go sand skiing. Dubai is a great place. Comparatively speaking, Dubai is the best place in the Middle East, in my opinion. I love Dubai. Well, for security reasons, when a ship pulls into Dubai, the captain gets a car and driver to take me around. And we're in there for a break. I'm out the first day. I'm going to the beach club. I'm having a Foster's beer. I am loving Dubai. Come back to the ship 10 o'clock at night. I'm going up the brow with a sailor. And so I say, how do you like Dubai? He says, we hate it. The whole crew hates Dubai. We can't wait to leave. And it's like, how can two people have the different experience? So I start looking at why. The Navy Supply Manual of 1947 specifically says that when you pull into a port, you rent 60 passenger buses for your sailors to go around in. And because of a Liberty incident, sailors weren't allowed to take taxis in Dubai or anywhere in the Middle East. You could only take these Navy approved buses. So I start pulling the string. The buses were being driven by Pakistani drivers who don't speak English. and they didn't understand the route. And they were there were only 5 stops that the bus could stop at. And my sailors were standing in the hot sun, 130-degree temperature for 4 or 5 hours, waiting for a bus to come by. And so, of course, they hate Dubai. So I called the supply officer, tell me why we're doing these 60-passenger buses. Well, it's right here in the rules. And I said, so because of increased terrorist threat, I'm thinking a 60-passenger bus full of U.S. military members is a terrorist target. And I said, Suppo, I want you to go get me 15 10-passenger minivans, each with a driver, and every 10 sailors can get together and check out a minivan, and they can go have the same amount of fun in Dubai that I have. Crew loved it. And I increased safety and security of my sailors. So following week, the 3-star fleet commander is in Dubai visiting ships, and all the sailors are complaining about how miserable Dubai is. And the 3-star doesn't understand, and he and the chief of staff are being driven to the airport by the NCIS agent, and they just can't understand why sailors hate Dubai. And the NCIS agent said, permission to speak freely, and they said, yes, there's a ship where the sailors love Dubai. It's called USS Benfold. So we're at sea. I get a call on the satellite command net from the chief of staff. The admiral wants to know what you did in Dubai last week. Well, one thing I learned is you never answer an open-ended question like that. Because, there are things that, you don't want people to know about. And I said, could you be more specific? And he said, the admiral was just there. Every ship hates Dubai except yours, and he wants to know why. So I explained it to him. I broke a rule. And I said, if you want your sailors to like Dubai, get the manual changed. You know what? A week later, the 3-star got the manual changed, and sailors can now take 10-passenger minivans. So, I've got rules and regulations I have to live within. But in this world, there are shades of gray. Not everything is black and white. And it's our job to understand the regulation or the rule and the intent of the regulation and the rule. And if situations have changed because of COVID, be adaptable and find something that works for you. But don't just sit there and say, oh, the rules say this, I can't do this. William Perry, my last day working for him, brought me into his office and sat me down and said, Mike, the easiest word in the English language to pronounce is no. He said, but if you develop a professional reputation where the first word out of your mouth is no, nobody is going to want to work with you. And so what I would do is try to have a culture where we would find a way to get to yes.
Oh, awesome.
And sometimes, people sitting behind the rule book say no. Okay, use that rule book and find a way to get to yes, to get accomplished what you need to get accomplished.
Love it. Love it. All right. And I want you to tell the Bolt story after this too. But Deborah Woods is asking, were there ever times when you felt out of your depth in the work that you were asked to do? If so, what helped you to map the road forward and get the work done?
Man, I felt out of my depth every day on that ship. So I would bring my second in command. I'd bring the command master chief in. I'd shut the door and I'd say, now what the heck do we do? So life isn't neat and tidy, and we are going to be asked to do things that stretch what we think our capabilities are. And we can bear that burden on our shoulders alone, or we can engage our team and say, and what I would do is say, here's the directive that we just got. I'd like your input as to how we can execute on it in a way that we can get the best results, but also in a way that is favorable to us. So when a directive came down from on high that I personally didn't agree with, I never said to my sailors, I don't agree with this but we're being told to do it from on high. If something we had to do, it came from me, I owned it. I don't blame my chain of command for saying, you got to do this. And I don't drag my chain of command under the bus for my sailors. I would say, here are the requirements. We don't get a vote on the requirements, but I'm giving you a vote on how we execute. And I'd like you to think about how we can execute this on terms that are favorable to us. And that way the crew had a say in how we carried the directives out, instead of just being said, here, this is what you got to do and this is how you got to do it. They now had a voice. And once they have a voice and feel engaged, they take ownership. If I tell them what to do, I'm just creating order takers. And order takers don't accept accountability and results. When they're part of the solution, they take ownership of the results.
Fantastic. Okay, Lynn Flynn is saying everyone has blind spots in how we manage and how we think. How can we identify them?
That's a great question. Because there's no such thing as a perfect leader. And there's no such thing as a born leader. It is a lifelong pursuit. The key is to have the self-awareness of understanding how we're being perceived by the people we're trying to influence. And I had, I wouldn't call them spies. Maybe I'd call them informants that would be able to check the pulse of the crew and give me feedback as to how something's being perceived. And if I'm missing, if I miss something, tell me that it was a miss. I can go back and fix it. So, the command master chief would always tell me what's going on with the crew. So I actively wanted to know what the crew was thinking and how a directive was being perceived. And if I was doing it the wrong way, I would collect feedback from my set of informants. So if you want to know the group of people on the ship who know everything that's going on, it's the smokers. And in the old day, when I first joined the Navy, people smoked in their bunks. They smoked on watch, and like the whole ship was a haze of cigarette smoke. But now we have a designated area where sailors can smoke, and it's the least conducive to getting them to smoke. It's back on the fantail of the ship, and you could be out there smoking and getting sea spray on you. It could be cold, and you have trouble lighting your cigarette. So we try to make it difficult for sailors to smoke. But at night, a Navy ship doesn't light up. We're dark so that nobody can see us, and you can't see who you're talking to. So at night after sunset, I'd go back and stand near the smoke break, and all you could see are these red butts lighting up. And the smokers, it's a very egalitarian place, the smoke break. It doesn't matter if you're the captain of the ship or if you're the lowest ranking seaman. Smokers are equal in the eyes of other smokers. And they talk about what's going on and how things are being perceived. So if I ever had a minute, I'd go out and just stand there and listen to what the smokers were talking about, because they're brutally honest, and there's no hold barred, and there's no rank structure at the smoke break. And that's how I could put my finger on the pulse of what was going on the ship.
Very good. Rocky had a question earlier and I hadn't seen it. So do you think it's possible that we may lose productivity as employees gravitate to more desirable working conditions, such as working at home? And is that going to force employers to better articulate mutually agreed upon, required productivity levels required per employee in exchange for more liberal working conditions?
So, Rocky and I were in the same company at the Naval Academy. I was class of 82 and Rocky was class of 84. So USS Benfold was stationed in San Diego, and it's a high cost of living area. And our work hours were from 7:30 in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon with an hour break for lunch. Well, in the Navy, after lunch, productivity just plummets. Nothing gets done on a Navy ship after lunchtime. And the problem with 7:30 to 4:30, I've got sailors sitting in rush hour traffic in the morning. I've got sailors sitting in rush hour traffic in the evening. And because San Diego is such a high cost of living area, I had sailors living in Tijuana. I had sailors living in San Bernardino, a 2-hour drive, and they're sitting in rush hour traffic. So in the interview as a sailor, what do you like most? What would you like to change? The sailor said, let's change the work hours. Let's start at 6 in the morning and work right through till 1 o'clock in the afternoon and serve lunch at 1. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I will gain productivity because I'm going to serve lunch at the end of the workday. So I get 7 hours of straight work instead of 5 hours. And I'm betting most sailors will want to leave the ship at 1, and I don't have to serve them lunch. So I'll save money in the food budget. So it's like, what's not to like? So change the work hours. Productivity goes up. And then people have more time in the day after 1 o'clock to get their personal things done. Dental appointments, medical appointments, getting the car serviced. And so what I think we could use this opportunity for is a way to increase productivity while giving people the opportunity to get their personal things done that they need to get done during the workday. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to be able to determine how to measure or gauge whether productivity is increasing or decreasing. And that's something that I can't tell you how to do that. But I think there is an opportunity to increase productivity during this time of work from home, while also giving people the opportunity to take care of their personal lives.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. Let's see here, guys. We're good, running out of time here. So I'm going to ask one more question, then I need you to sum up the discussion. But Suzanne Webb is saying, if you could take back or change one decision you made, what would it be and why?
So my ship had 5 departments on it, each one headed by a department head. And I changed the way I evaluate department heads. And the number one criteria was collaboration with their fellow department heads and how they drove collaboration across the 5 departments down to the lowest level. And if you ask me what made that ship the great ship that it was the collaboration among the 5 departments. It wasn't until after I got out of the Navy, I'm writing It's Your Ship. And Benfold was one ship of a 10-ship aircraft carrier battle group. And you know that in 2 years, I never did one thing to help a fellow ship or to help a fellow ship captain. And as I was writing the book, it hit me, if the aircraft carrier had gotten sunk because one of the other ships didn't do their job properly, it would not have mattered that we were the best ship in the battle group or the best ship in the Pacific Fleet. We would have been known as the group that failed in our mission to protect the aircraft carrier. And I give myself an F in collaboration with my peers. And if I had one thing to go back and do over again, it would be to figure out a way for the 10 of us to come together and share best practices. We certainly couldn't have been the repository for every great idea. I could have learned from them. They could have learned from me. We could have shared what was keeping us up at night so that we could attack it as a battle group instead of individually. And I think we would have had a better battle group as a result. And I wasn't smart enough at the time to figure it out, but that's the one thing I'd go back and change.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a really important learning. This has been amazing, Mike, just amazing. So at the end of the day, what would you have what would you like us to most have learned from you in our discussion?
I guess it would be to have the humility, to lead with a sense of humility instead of leading with arrogance. Mm-hmm. And to want to be the best, because I'm playing to win. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be respected, and I'm here to keep my sailors safe, and I'm here to deliver results. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And then it's the what do you have to do to get there to get the best results? You have to have a unified workforce, not one that focuses on our divisions, but one that focuses on what unites us. And you have to create an intellectually curious workforce that doesn't fear raising their hand and giving you recommendations on how to improve. And so I guess what I want you to leave with is, at the end of the day, we can't order excellence. We've got to create and nurture a climate so that our people help us deliver excellence and lift burdens off our shoulders as we go.
All right. How about the top 3 actions you want us to take coming out of here?
Read It's Your Ship. Interview your people. And I guess those would be the top 2 things.
2 things. Okay. And Mike, I think you've got the interview questions you asked in your book. Is that right?
Correct. It's all in the book.
Okay. Very, very good. All right. So do you have any final thoughts you want to share? You want to tell us what we're doing now? I mean, what you're doing now?
So, so since I left the Navy, I've been asked to give keynote speeches, and I do about 100 a year. I've flown 6 million miles since I left the Navy in 2001, and it's not something that I'm proud of. I just happen to love what I do, and hopefully I get people motivated and give them thought-provoking things of what they can be doing better. But it's tough to tell them how to do things better in an hour. So fortunately, so I love to surround myself with people who are smarter than me. And about 10 years ago, I joined up with Stacy Cunningham. She lives in the Philly area, and she's far smarter than I am. And she has put together a how-to series on how you can become a better leader. And we call it the navigation guide. And it's a virtual program. It takes 15 minutes a week. It's not a heavy lift, but she broke down everything in the book and made a lesson for it, so that it takes, it's 26, 30 lessons, very inexpensive. But she is the one that put the intellectual roadmap behind what we did on the ship. And she and I are co-owners of the organization, and I learned from her, and it's been a fantastic relationship working with her over these last 10 years. And so if you want to take a free lesson from our virtual roadmap, Donna will give you the link and tell you a little bit about our consulting group, but Stacy does fantastic work.
Okay, fantastic. Mike, I did put the link in the chat. Okay, this has been tremendous. I just think so highly of you, and I appreciate all you've shared with us today. Julie, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so, but I would like to thank Captain Abrashoff for coming and doing this for us, because we know he's been in such high demand, and Donna, thank you for making this happen.
Well, Donna's the reason why I did it. Because I have tremendous respect for Donna. I've worked with her probably for 15 years, and when she asked, I said, when?
Oh, so, thank you.
So I'm happy to be here.
It's been tremendous, guys. It's really, really appreciate it. I know we're right up on time here. So just for reference, our upcoming guests on February 18th, we have Liz Sanchez. She's the president of SCORE. If you haven't heard of SCORE, they are retired executives that consult with entrepreneurs for free. So you can learn about that. On February 25th, we've got our networking session. And then on March 4th, we've got an image consultant joining us to help us talk about our image online and in person these days. If you have an interest in supporting this program, please go to our website, pursepower.com. Every Monday, I put up the links for that Friday's event. And please like and share our social media pages. Let your friends know about this webcast. We have amazing guests like Captain Abrashoff joining us every week. Any final comments from you, Mike?
Thanks for joining in, and I hope you enjoyed the last hour. I certainly did.
Me too. This is great. And we'll get this up on YouTube this afternoon. So thank you very much. And remember, everybody, Purse Power, we have it. Let's use it. See you next Friday. Thank you. Bye, Mike.
Take care.
Bye, Julie.
Stay warm.
You too.